Hey there boys and girls, Lucky here and welcome back to another CSGO video. Today I'll explain to you guys the benefits of 128 tick versus 64 tick. Alongside with that, I'll also explain the common misconceptions and placebos regarding the topic. So first of all, we have to explain four things: frames per second, polling rate, refresh rate, and then server tick rate. Keep in mind those are all in relation to milliseconds, so we'll use the millisecond number as a common ground. First of all, frames per second. Essentially it explains itself, but think of it like this: the FPS are the existence of the game in real life time. Like for example, you got 3 FPS, this means the game will only be alive or exist for about 3 moments per second. Second of all, polling rate. Straightforward, it is how often your mouse is reporting back to your PC the information it gets from being moved on your desk. This happens each millisecond with good mice, however some prefer 500 Hz instead of 1000 polling rate, so it only happens every 2 moments instead of 1 moment, but that's also a topic for another video. Third of all, refresh rate. It describes how often per second your screen refreshes or updates the image on the screen. Important to know here is that depending on the refresh rate, you'll also be able to see each image for a different amount of time. Last but not least, server tick. 64 tick updates the information of what's happening in the game 64 times per second, while 128 tick does this twice as often. So naturally it has to be better, right? Well, yes and no. Let me explain. Starting out again with FPS. With a 60 Hz monitor, every frame will be displayed for about 16.7 milliseconds. Now, human reaction is able to notice delays on average at about 100 milliseconds. I said notice, not react to. And now, why would you want anything higher than 60 FPS if your monitor can display more anyways? Well, 16.7 milliseconds is quite a period as for fluidity and snappiness, so that there's no delay. Now, if your PC only generates 60 FPS with 60 Hz, that frame can be right at the start of those 16.7 milliseconds or far at the end of that at maybe like 15 milliseconds. This just adds additional delay to the game. So having more FPS puts more frames in that 16.7 milliseconds, which increases the chance of having a frame closer to the beginning of the refresh cycle. Now, this is important to know since we will use this comparison for the tick rate as well. 64 tick updates slightly more often than your usual 60 Hz monitor. This means every frame is covered and updated with a proper info, and again, if you have a higher tick rate like 128 tick, in this regard, you in theory can get the update displayed faster just like with the frames. But you will always miss one of the update ticks since your monitor refresh rate isn't high enough. Same goes for too low FPS. You will not get all the ticks unless you're able to maintain above 128 FPS all the time. Of course, there might be some slight desync as when the frame is hitting and when the update is hitting, but we'll just kind of keep it simple right now. Okay, I think that's what mainly everyone should be getting at now. So why doesn't Valve add 128 tick servers already? Well, besides the obvious of higher costs, etc., the main issue here compared to our FPS example is that the FPS are on our client side only. However, tick is the same for everyone, so yeah, it might feel snappier, but in theory it is just as fair. And also the thing with 128 tick has better hit rate is a complete placebo. What you might encounter is that some servers are online for too long and hence are not consistently keeping the ticks or rate, and that's really the bigger issue right here, or people just having like bad connections and are lagging all over the place. Now, since technically people really cannot see more than the actual 64 tick with a regular 60 Hz monitor and regular 60 FPS, people with 144 Hz and higher FPS can. So another reason why that won't be added probably is that while on client side more FPS grants you more benefits, a higher tick would grant high refresh monitor users a lot more benefits, since they would be able to see all the ticks instead of just the one that is closer to the refresh cycle. So I hope this cleared up some of the confusion. Yes, in short, 128 tick feels snappier and is more responsive, and usually it is just better. However, if you cannot maintain 128 FPS with a high refresh rate monitor, you will not be able to see half the ticks. So in the eyes of a company, 64 tick probably completely covers the usual needs. Yeah, sometimes the servers are shitty, but I bet my ass that the majority of players wouldn't be able to notice a big difference or any difference at all for that matter between 128 and 64 tick, may it be feel-wise or from a technical point of view. So once again, I hope this cleared some of the confusion. If you got any more questions or want to complain that I oversimplified the matter and left out what kind of effect tiering and all that stuff has, feel free to do so in the comment section down below so I can clear it up. But I think that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed the video, and LuckySkillFaker out.